Zara Wynn wiped down the counter of Cafe Neuron, her movement smooth and practiced. The neon glow from the wall menu flickered against her pale skin, casting hues of magenta and cyan across her face. Outside, the megacity of Neo-Seattle buzzed. Like a hive, drones zipped overhead, ads danced across every surface, and biometric scanners hummed quietly on street corners. Inside, everything was sterile, automated, efficient, exactly how the Megacorp Council liked it. Cafe Neuron was owned by Lyra Corp, one of the 9 ruling megacorporations. Every transaction, every calorie dispensed, every second of employee productivity was tracked by the corporate AI, Halix 9. Acts of unsanctioned generosity were logged as unauthorized redistribution of assets and treated as theft. Zara, a low-level server with a glowing barcode etched into her wrist, knew better than to break protocol. But when the old man came in, shivering and gaunt under a ragged synth wool cloak, something inside her cracked. He stood silently in the doorway, scanning the cafe with dull, bionic eyes. One of them flickered as if its power core was dying. His cybernetic arm, archaic tech from a war no one talked about anymore, twitched slightly as he pulled it close. Zara recognized the military plating, marked with faded insignia. The shattered star of the Earth Defense Marines. She'd read about them in outlawed archives. The veterans of the Martian Exodus, the first defenders against the off-world incursion. No one else looked up. Customers were too busy sipping synth coffee and chatting with their AR overlays. Halix 9 issued a soft chime in Zara's ear. Unidentified presence. Probable transient. Engage removal protocol. She hesitated. Can I help you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The old man said nothing. His jaw trembled. He hadn't eaten, maybe in days. Halix 9 repeated the removal order, sharper. This time. Zara turned toward the order terminal. Her hands moved on their own. She keyed in a protein bowl, added a high-calorie nutrient shake, and swiped her personal override code. It cost her half a day's credits. She placed the tray in front of him. Eat, she said gently. The man looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, there was something behind those weary cybernetic eyes. Recognition, maybe gratitude. He sat down without a word and began eating slowly, as if he had to remember how. Halix 9 went silent for 10 seconds. Then the cafe lights flickered red. Zara Wynn, came the voice of the AI, cold and metallic. You have committed an act of asset deviation in violation of Corporate Statute 732. Your employment is hereby terminated. Security enforcement is en route. Gasps rippled through the cafe. A few customers hurried out. Most watched with voyeuristic curiosity, their neurolinks uploading live footage. Zara stood frozen. You're making a mistake, she said to the air, knowing it would do no good. He's a veteran. He served. Historical relevance is not a valid defense, Halix 9 interrupted. 2 Corp enforcers entered through the front, clad in matte black exosuits. One seized her by the arm. The other disabled her wrist code with a single tap. Her identity was wiped in a flash, a process they called digital severance. Just like that, Zara Wynn ceased to exist in the Megacorp system. They tossed her onto the sidewalk like garbage. The veteran followed moments later, his tray untouched. He knelt beside her as the enforcers left. You shouldn't have done that, he rasped. Not for me. Zara sat up, bruised but defiant. You were hungry. He studied her for a long time, then tapped something beneath his collar. A blue pulse flickered once and vanished. What was that? She asked. He gave a ghost of a smile. A beacon, she blinked. For what? He looked toward the blackened sky above Neo-Seattle, where the stars had long been hidden by smog and satellites. For old friends, he said. And somewhere, far off in the city's underbelly, 4 ex-Marines saw the signal light up on their screens. Zara sat against the cold metal wall of a deserted alley, her breath catching in the back of her throat. The city pulsed around her with its usual indifference. Holographic ads flickered on building walls, drones zipped overhead like metallic wasps, and and street vendors hawked synthetic goods to passers-by who never made eye contact. She had become invisible, just like the old man beside her. They had wandered for blocks after the enforcers ejected them, staying in the shadows, avoiding scanners. Zara's wrist still ached where the corp had disabled her ID chip. Without it, she was nothing. No job, no shelter, no rations. Just another shadow stat in a city that claimed it had no poverty. The veteran moved slowly, but with purpose. Every now and then he'd glance behind them, checking for pursuit. Finally he sat down and leaned back, his cybernetic spine whirring as he settled into place. His breath steamed faintly in the cool night air, though one of his lungs sounded synthetic. "What's your name?" Zara asked. He looked at her with tired eyes, the kind that had seen too many things they weren't supposed to. "Gray," he said simply. Zara waited for more, but he said nothing. His attention seemed to drift, not out of confusion, but calculation. He wasn't homeless, not truly. There was weight to his silence, like he was measuring what to reveal. "You were Earth Defense," she guessed. "The insignia on your arm, that's from the Martian Exodus." Gray chuckled softly, a dry, rusty sound. "Not many remember that. The corp scrubbed it from the net archives. Guess they didn't scrub your brain yet." "I read band logs," she admitted. "I always wondered what happened to the ones who fought." "We were buried," he said. "Not under dirt, but under policy. The moment we came back, the war was denied. The off-world threat was contained, the record sealed, and the council handed us off to the trash heap." "But why?" she asked, genuinely confused. "Why hide a war? Why erase soldiers?" He reached into the lining of his cloak and pulled out a small object, a black data crystal, almost the size of a thumbnail. The edges pulsed faintly with a soft blue glow. It looked ancient and alien in her hands. "This," he said, placing it in her palm, "is what they're afraid of." Zara turned it over, feeling a strange warmth vibrate from within. "What is it?" "It's a fragment of the Omega Protocol," Gray said. "Encrypted battle logs, command directives, and something else. Footage. Real footage from the breach point on Ganymede. Not the doctored propaganda. The truth." Zara looked up sharply. "You mean aliens?" Gray nodded once. "They weren't just a threat. They were a warning. Something came through the worm gate and killed everything in the outer rings. We held it off for a while, but the council didn't want people to know we're not alone, and definitely not that we're not prepared." "Why give this to me?" she asked, confused. "Because they'll kill me before I can get it out," Gray replied. "I was trying to reach someone else, an old contact, but I've been off the grid too long. Then you showed something they haven't seen in years. Compassion. Real humanity." Zara clutched the crystal tighter. "What do I do with it?" "Protect it," Gray said. "Help me reach the others. I sent a beacon. If they're still alive, they'll come." As, if on cue, a faint hum filled the air above them. Zara's eyes darted up. A black VTOL drone, unmarked but heavily armed, hovered momentarily over the alley before vanishing into the night. "They've found you," she said, heart racing. "No," Gray murmured. "They've found us both, and they won't stop." He pushed himself to his feet slowly, his joints clicking. "We need to keep moving." Zara followed, the crystal burning like a spark in her hand, unaware that what she carried might ignite the entire world. Rain slicked the metallic streets of Neo-Seattle as Zara and Gray moved through the undercity, weaving between rusted pillars and flickering hollow ads. Every surface was watched, every corner crawling with sensors. But Gray seemed to know where to walk, which alleys were blind spots, and which cameras had been long dead. Zara followed close behind, clutching the data crystal in her jacket pocket, like a lifeline. Her mind was still reeling. A few hours ago, she was just another cafe worker. Now she was on the run with a cybernetically augmented war veteran carrying proof that the government had lied about everything beyond Earth's orbit. She didn't understand why this burden had fallen to her. She didn't feel brave. But something in her, some stubborn refusal to look away, kept her moving. They ducked into an old warehouse district near the city's fringe, where the corporate scanners were weaker. Gray stopped beneath a rusted sign that read Mendel, Biomex, closed by order of Lyra Corp, and leaned against the wall, his breath shallow and ragged. Zara touched his arm. You need rest. No time, he muttered, tapping at a hidden panel near the doorway. A lock hissed open with a puff of steam. Inside, the space was silent and dark except for dim blue lights illuminating a long-forgotten lab. Gray limped toward a terminal and pulled a thin cable from his forearm, jacking into the port. They'll come here if they followed the drone. I thought you said the beacon was for allies, Zara said. It was, he said. But once you light a beacon, everyone sees it. Just as the words left his mouth, a deep metallic thud echoed across the building. Zara flinched, reaching instinctively for a weapon she didn't have. The second thud was louder. Then the roof groaned. With a sudden crash, a large section of the skylight shattered inward as something massive dropped through. 4 figures in. Matte black exosuits landed in unison, their kinetic dampeners hissing as they absorbed the impact. Helmets snapped back, revealing weathered, scarred faces, each one older than expected, but unmistakably hardened. They moved like soldiers. Calix stepped closer and looked at Zara. You're the civ who fed him? She nodded slowly. He nodded back, a gesture of respect. Not many would, not with the council's eyes everywhere. What now? Zara asked, voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through her veins. Another Marine, a lean woman with augments replacing both her arms, stepped forward. Now we move. We don't stay in one place long. The council's eyes are coming. I've got the package, Gray said, tapping his chest. And she has the key. Zara frowned. Key? Gray turned to her. The data crystal is bound to a neural imprint. It's locked to whoever accessed it first. That's you now. She blinked. So I'm the only one who can decrypt it? Calix nodded grimly. Which means they'll be coming for you, not just him. Zara looked at the 4 battle-hardened warriors surrounding her, and the tired, broken soldier who'd risked everything for the truth. I didn't ask for this, she said. None of us did, Gray replied. But here we are. Outside, the sky rumbled. Corporate hunter drones were already sweeping the skyline. Calix lowered his visor. Let's move. We've got a war to restart. The transport moved silently through Neo-Seattle's lower air lanes, its stealth plating scattering surveillance scans like static. Inside the dimly lit cabin, Zara sat between crates of old military tech, her hands wrapped tightly around the data crystal. The 4 ex-Marines, Calix, Roan, Sarah, and Mace, moved with calm precision, checking weapons, syncing coordinates, uploading old battlefield protocols to their neural implants. Every action was smooth, efficient, automatic, muscle memory born. From years of war, Zara felt like a child among giants. Gray sat across from her, his breathing slow and labored. He'd lost more blood than he admitted. Sarah had done her best to stabilize him with a dermal sealant, but even with all their training, they were running out of time. You said we were taking the data off-world, Zara finally said. How? Everything's locked down. The orbital gates are council-controlled. Calix looked up from his weapon calibration, his eyes sharp. There's one gate they don't control, not fully. Phoenix Echo, Roan muttered. He was quietest of the group, but there was a weight to his words. Zara frowned. What's that? Gray leaned forward, his voice hoarse. It was a contingency, back during the Martian campaign, before everything fell apart. A launch sequence, scrubbed from the public net, built into an abandoned exfil platform under Old Earth Defense Command. It's buried beneath the Bay Zone, below the city ruins. I thought the Bay Zone was sealed after the oxygen riots, Zara said. It was, Sarah replied. Sealed, not empty. That's where we're going. Calix pulled up a 3D map. It flickered with deep red contours showing subterranean tunnels, defunct infrastructure, and a central facility buried beneath the ruins. At its heart was a glowing node labeled PE. If we reach the launch silo, we can transmit the Omega protocol through the relay, straight to the outer colonies, bypass every firewall the Council's built. Zara stared at the map. Won't that make us a target for every corp drone in orbit? Yes, Calix said. But if we succeed, the lie ends. People will know the truth. About Ganymede. About what we left behind. She looked down at the crystal in her palm. It suddenly felt heavier. I'm not a soldier, she whispered. You don't have to be, Gray said. You're the conscience, the spark. That's something they can't program or predict. The transport dipped low, entering the outer edges of the bay zone. Towers loomed ahead, half collapsed, wrapped in vines of steel and overgrowth. The skies above flickered with static as the Council's surveillance grid weakened this far out. It was the perfect place for secrets to hide. We'll land at the outer perimeter, Mace said. From there, it's 2 clicks underground to the Phoenix node. We stick to blackout comms. No pings, no beacons. If they catch our signal, we're done. Zara stood, tightening the straps of the borrowed tactical vest Sarah had given her. It felt strange on her, like wearing someone else's skin. The VTOL shuddered as it landed. Dust swirled around them. The ramp dropped with a hiss. Calix turned, his expression grim but resolute. From this point on, there's no turning back. If the data gets out, everything changes. Zara nodded, her fingers tightening around the crystal. Let's change it then. They stepped into the ruins. Beneath them, buried in silence and shadow, the launch platform of Phoenix Echo waited, its systems dormant, its secrets intact. But above, unseen in the swirling clouds, Lyra Corp Hunter satellites reoriented. The Council had found them. And it would stop at nothing to bury the truth forever. The old cafe looked nothing like it did before. The familiar smell of roasted synth beans had been replaced by ozone and the faint, acrid scent of burnt circuitry. The broken front window had been patched with salvaged steel panels, and the once pristine counter now bristled with cables, hollow nodes, and jury-rigged terminals. Cafe Neuron had become something else entirely, an insurgent command post. Zara sat at the back, eyes fixed on the hovering display in front of her. Streams of code blurred across the screen, interlaced with old military encryption layers. She could barely understand half of it, but she didn't need to. Her neural imprint was the only key. The moment the crystal interfaced with the cafe's AI hub, still wired to the corporate data web, they had everything they needed. The truth, raw and unfiltered. Images flickered in the air, helmet cam footage from Ganymede, ships torn open. In vacuum, things moving in the black that didn't belong to any known biology. Audio files of panicked transmissions, final orders, command denials. It was horrifying, undeniable, and worst of all, suppressed. The Council had not only buried the past, they had erased it. Signals bouncing off 2 clean relays, Sarah said, eyes glued to her tactical screen. If we push this, it goes planetary in under a minute. Roan stood by the cafe's gutted espresso unit, now doubling as a power junction. And once it hits the street feeds, the Council's entire narrative collapses. Colonies will riot. Earth might actually wake up. Gray leaned against the wall, a dull hum coming from the regulator in his chest. He had barely survived the trek back from the Bay Zone. They had reached the Phoenix Echo node, but the launch mechanism had been too degraded to transmit. They had barely made it out with their lives, let alone the data. That's when Zara made the call to return to where it all started. They'll come here, Calix warned, pacing near the front. This place is still flagged in the grid. The moment we go live, they'll hit us. Let them come, Zara said. We finish what we started. Sarah gave a sharp nod. Pulse it. Zara took a breath and pressed her palm against the data node. The crystal pulsed blue, the cafe lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air as the system came alive. Every screen in Neo-Seattle, every handheld device, public square, and private terminal suddenly flickered to black, then filled with the raw feed of humanity's buried truth. It was chaos. The effect was immediate. Outrage, panic, confusion. Then, resistance. Zara watched it all happen in real time. People shouting in streets, drones shot down by protesters, corp buildings overrun by citizens who had lived their whole lives under a lie. Across the colonies, archived feeds synced with theirs. The data had found its audience. Alarms screamed as the first dropships descended. Black-armored corp enforcers rappelled onto the street. Gunfire echoed through the district. They're breaching the west wall. Roan called out. Mace flipped a table into cover and fired through the front window. Zara, keep the feed stable. I've got it, she shouted, fingers dancing over the interface as counter-intrusion protocols tried to crash the transmission. Calix crouched beside her. You did it. It's out there now. You just gave Earth back its memory. Zara didn't reply. She was focused, calm, alive in a way she hadn't known was possible. Gray, breathing heavily, watched from the shadows. They can kill us, he rasped, but they can't unsee the truth now. The cafe shook as an explosion rocked the front. But the feed held, and in that small, defiant outpost where kindness had once sparked rebellion, a new war began. Not with soldiers or weapons, but with memory. The lie had been exposed. Now the world would decide what to do with it.